we need action now for all the thousands of people who are going to die from cold this winter, for all the people who are going to die next summer from massive heat waves. We need action now.
Just Stop Oil will begin another 2 weeks of climate action from today. Scotland Yard is warning that the group may cause disruption in the lead up to Christmas. This comes amid reports that the Home Secretary Suella Braverman will meet with police chiefs to discuss cracking down on the group's protest. Let's speak to Alex de Koning, who is a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Remind us what happened. Why did you suspend the protests and why are you bringing them back?
So just a bit of an introduction. My name's Alex. I'm a 24-year-old climate scientist. And we suspended the protests in order to give the government time to respond to our claims and to stop all new oil and gas, because we all know it needs to be done. We have 8 years of oil in reserve. Renewable energies are currently 9 times cheaper. I mean, would you viewers rather they were £400 their energy bills that landed on their doorstep, or £3,600? So that's why we're starting it up again as well, because we need action now for all the thousands of people who are going to die from cold this winter, for all the people who are going to die next summer from massive heat waves. We need action now.
Are you going to change the way that you protest? Because there was at least one unfortunate incident where this poor guy missed, I think it was his dad's funeral because of the protests on a particular road. And I mean, that was. And we had someone on, I think, from your organisation saying that they thought that was, that individual case was terrible. Is there any way that you can stop those kind of things from happening, or do you think that's just collateral damage?
You're right. That is truly terrible that somebody missed their dad's funeral. I'd be furious if that happened to me. But unfortunately, we're doing this because we need change to happen, right? This summer, it was 40 degrees and birds fell out of the sky. We've already lost half of our potato crop, a third of our wheat crop, our entire fruit and vegetable supply chains on the brink of collapse next year because our reservoirs are running low from the drought this year. Things are going to get worse every single year, and that's why we need action like this, because our government is still not doing anything about it. This disruption will end as soon as the government make a meaningful statement to end all new oil and gas. And we will switch tactics as soon as somebody suggests a more meaningful and effective method that we could be using instead. But currently we've tried with marches, we've tried with petitions, we've tried with running for office, we've done everything else that we possibly could, and this is the last resort. This is the line in the sand that we're saying we're not going to take any more. Our government needs to meet these demands of no new oil, which is what the vast majority of the British public want.
But how likely do you think that is? Because you gave them this period where you suspended protests and you said, okay, come back to us, respond to us, and they didn't. So I just wonder, I mean, there is this kind of gap, isn't there, between you saying this is what the public want, and the government saying, well, you need to stop protesting and inconveniencing people. And within that, there's kind of, I don't know, there's just all sorts of people. It's all a bit messy, really, isn't it? And I appreciate what you're saying about you've tried other things and it hasn't really worked. But do you actually think that? I mean, you obviously think this is going to work, but over what kind of time period? Because this could go on for years, if not decades.
Well, as I say, we have 8 years of oil in reserve. The transitional period should start immediately. Renewable energies are currently 9 times cheaper. I don't know how many times I need to repeat that on these interviews for that to really sink in. There's no reason why we shouldn't be starting immediately. I think everybody knows that at some point we're going to have no new oil and gas. The question is, why on earth should we wait for that to happen? We should all be demanding this as soon as possible to ensure that there is as little amount of disruption as possible in the coming weeks and months and years. Like, if we all came on the road together tomorrow and sat outside Parliament, like everybody who agreed with the demand, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, what would the government do? They couldn't do anything. So they would cave in and we would win the campaign in a couple of days. That's what needs to happen.
Okay. Can we talk just quickly about the Home Secretary? Because apparently she's going to meet police chiefs to discuss cracking down on your protests. What do you think that might mean in practice for you guys?
Well, we're not going to be intimidated by changes in the law. When we're looking at what we're facing, the fact that we may not have food in just 10 years, the fact that drinking water is potentially predicted to run out by 2040. 18 years from now, a child born now may not have enough water to drink when they're old enough to drink alcohol. When we're looking at things like that, we're not going to be intimidated by changes in the law. We're fighting for our lives. Why would we stop unless we get our demand of no new oil met?
Can I just read you some of the texts that have come in while we're speaking? I hope give you an idea of what Times Radio listeners seem to be saying. Stephen says, if this is what the public want, we would have a Green Party government. Is he advocating everyone driving and using petrol to get to Parliament to protest? That's hypocritical. That gives you an idea of what some people are saying. Another one here, Mark. Can you teach your guest what democracy is? He is not the world's dictator. He's just a single issue pressure campaigner who's not been elected by anyone. Now, you're saying that you enjoy huge support, but there are some people who don't support you, even when you tell them the facts as you present them.
Yeah, of course, there's what our actions that we're doing are extremely controversial, and very sadly, that's what gets us on news programs such as this. Journalists such as yourself prefer to cover a story that is controversial because it gets people talking. And it's very sad that you don't really talk about the climate crisis at other times. In terms of speaking about democracy, well, sadly, we don't really live in a democracy. Nobody really voted in Rishi Sunak. We don't have proportional representation, which is why the Green Party is not doing better. And also, we're not going to have another election for at least 2 years. I don't think we can wait that long before we start taking climate action.
Alex, just on that point, I mean, that might be true. It might be true of some broadcasts. I don't know. But if you listen to Times Radio, especially this program, we barely talk about anything else. We honestly do talk about the climate crisis all the time. I think it's possible for people to be informed and concerned about the climate crisis without necessarily supporting your methods.
Of course it is, but do you know what blanket coverage is? We had it for the Queen's funeral. We had it for COVID. We treated those, like COVID, for example, like an emergency, and we took action on that. When we're talking about the biggest crisis that's ever faced humanity, when we're talking about the fact that billions of people are going to be on the move in 20, 30 years' time, we're talking about the fact that already our food supply chains are running low because of the droughts we've had this year, the worst drought in 500 years. We need to be talking about it a whole lot more than just the occasional segment piece that comes on in the radio. We cover the sport every day. Why on earth are we not covering this every day?
Well, I presume because other things happen in life, and people want to hear about everything, including this. Alex, thank you for talking to us. That's Alex de Koning. He is a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil.